Sovereign AI, what does it mean for you or to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, if you look back, cast your eye back a little bit historically, the original cloud vendors, and we were one of them in 2004 or so, the sort of premise was that we would have a very small number of physical infrastructure sites and you'd serve the whole world from there. And that model, it worked reasonably well for a long time, but you started to see with COVID, there's this kind of shift you see in the industry. People want more localized options. It just gives people more control. I think it's a little more helpful in that case. So in the AI world especially, what we're seeing is regional requirements, regional requests to put AI directly in a region, in a zone. So here in Singapore, we actually launched Singapore Protected Platform. And that is just what it sounds like. It is a full stack of the ServiceNow software, including the LLMs, including the AI technologies, all running here in Singapore. And we actually developed this with some kind of advice and feedback from the folks in GovTech to really address a really broad swath of the regulatory regime here in Singapore to make it really useful here.
All right, and I know you're working with schools here as well, one of the polytechnics, right? What are you doing on that front?
Well, that's another kind of global challenge that we're trying to address in various localities where we can. We're working with Nanyang Polytechnic here, but our goal is to really build AI skills and relevance here in Singapore so that the employee base, the folks here, are equipped to work on these sort of new modern AI technologies so that this is not a skill gap that we see. We want to actually try to address that and kind of put a bit of our money where our mouth is by working with folks locally. And it's not just here, we're doing this globally, but here in Singapore it's Nanyang, and we may expand beyond that given time.
Which is a good thing, right? Building up that skills base locally or in different localities. But Pat, listen, I'm sure you've heard about this and debated it as well. So issue of whether sovereign AI really is sovereign, because when it comes down to the hardware as well as the software, right, it basically breaks up into two different verticals, either U.S. gear and equipment and software or Chinese gear equipment and software. So how sovereign really are sovereign AI systems for certain countries, including the one here?
Yeah, well, it's the right question to ask, and that there's no glib one-word answer. It really is more of a spectrum as to how much localized control you want or you need based on your individual requirements. At the maximal level, it can be global infrastructure running somewhere else. There's an intermediate level where the locality says, hey, I want the equipment running on sovereign soil. Beyond that, you can manage it globally. Here in Singapore Protected, it's a little more robust than that. We have the infrastructure here in Singapore, but also the human beings who can interface with that, the support personnel and the operations personnel. They've gone through Singapore accreditation, so there's actually an understanding as to who has access to that infrastructure. You can push it even further. You can get air-gapped, and you can build a full isolated bubble. That's rarely done because the economics make it challenging in a lot of markets, but it is a possibility.
Okay, I got to ask you, this is controversial, but I mean, you're a pro, so I'll leave you to navigate it as you see fit, right? As far as you know, working closely with the government and also GovTech here, right? Their platform, the Protected Platform, does it use or include any Chinese-originated technology or software?
My short answer is I haven't actually dug into the underlying hardware stack. We built this out here on top of Microsoft Azure. You know, first principles, Microsoft is an American firm. One would assume that it's largely American stack under there. Okay. But the reality is we live in such an interconnected world. Even something which is notionally American, I can virtually guarantee you there's parts from all over the globe involved in that supply chain.